You are unique. Maybe you've heard that before, but this time I want you to let the idea wash over you in a new way. No one could truly know what it has meant to walk in your shoes because only you have walked in them. Your some experiences, thoughts, feelings, genetics, and spirit are yours alone. There has never been another you, nor will there ever be. You are no better or worse than anyone else. And even when you don't feel like you are anywhere near good enough, you are enough because of one simple truth. You are you, the only one. When you were born, you arrive with some innate traits that distinguish you from others. You carry specific genes that you received from your parents. You probably appreciate your parents for some of those genetic qualities they handed down. Others, well, you may wish you could give them back. But your DNA is only part of the story of you, and a small part at that. Our stories begin at a very young age. Despite the powerlessness we have to control what and who is around us in that stage of our lives. Children are blank slates, and in the early years, our parents and others write on those slates for us. But it is important to know our origin stories nonetheless, so that we can be aware of whether we are expressing ourselves as adults in a way that aligns with who we truly are, and importantly, to understand if any negative aspects of our origin story might be affecting our current behavior in some fashion. You might be wondering how it's possible to get out of alignment with our truth, so let's investigate and take an objective look at a typical upbringing. This may not exactly represent your experience, but based on my years of coaching, I'm willing to bet it's not too far off. We have no choice in how we are raised. We're all born into a family system of some kind. The core family dynamics vary widely, and there are fundamental values within family systems that may or may not match up with our own individual values. We'll have an in-depth discussion about values in the relationships chapter, but the bottom line is that much of our early shaping of our personality occurs as a result of the family dynamic in which we are raised. Most of us attend school or group activities that begin to teach us how to socialize. We develop hobbies. At some point in our early lives, we start to develop a gut feeling about right and wrong. Eventually, as we physically mature, we become responsible for our own self-care and our physical health. We learn in school the importance of a general education, but then later in life, many of us seem to disconnect from the idea of learning and just settle for what knowledge we've already attained. I believe many of us cease yearning for new information because we may have felt forced to learn things we found to be useless later in life, and as a result experience a level of disenchantment. Our very first relationship actually begins in the womb, our relationship with our mother. Then we form relationships with those in our immediate family as we evolve from helpless infant to young adult. Puberty sets in, along with a flood of confusing emotions due to hormones, and many of us experience our first romantic love. As we prepare for independence, we learn about financial responsibility. We may start out with jobs that don't exactly reflect our life's purpose. Instead, they are a solid training ground on which we transition into adulthood. Depending upon our upbringing, we may embrace religion or spirituality. Later, we make a conscious decision as to whether we continue those practices, make shifts within them, or choose a new spiritual course. These are very broad strokes, a big picture view of the most common paths from child to adult. But I ask you this, at what point in that journey do we learn how to connect with our best self? Schools don't teach us this skill. Our parents likely do not, as they themselves may not be in touch with their best self, and even if they are, then it may not be on a consistent basis. Our friends certainly don't have the tools. Therefore, later on, most of us end up with aspects of our life that just feel off. It's not something we can fully articulate, but we know something isn't quite right. The problem? We aren't being authentically ourselves in one area of life or another.